Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I want to compare the two female Blast Tier 3s, Jean Grey and Sharon Rogers, in both GBR and Call Obsidian World Boss Ultimate, because those two game modes, and specifically that World Boss, is where, up until now, Sharon Rogers has been basically the de facto #1. She's basically the fastest clearer for all GBR content, and she is, by far the best character to play Call Obsidian World Boss Ultimate. So I wanted to see just how well a double cost native tier 2 mutant tier 3 matches up against our beloved free-to-play Dark Star armor wearing queen. So the teams are not going to be exactly the same because I don't want to force quit this run and then start another one with the exact same team with Jean. And it's a little bit unfair to Jean because on the one hand, I do want a fire damage from Ghost Panther's passive, but obviously Sharon Rogers can't take advantage of that. So I thought I would just do a relatively similar team. It's not going to be exactly the same, but it's going to be relatively the same. So here we're using the 50% lead from Nick Fury, in addition to the 55% bonus damage that he gives against supervillains. And then we're using Wasp's tier 2 passive to make sure that we don't take any sort of debuffs. So we got a cat meowing in the background, which means we're doing the right thing here. And we're just going to try to take some damage and pop off this tier 3. The only thing that really influences the speed of this clear is whether or not you get hit, because getting hit will severely increase your damage, but not getting hit, especially against Master Mold, is quite difficult. Not getting hit is going to reduce your damage, and we're gonna miss this by just the smallest bit. We would have gotten that done, but we do get this done here in 1 minute and 50 seconds. My teammates did 0 damage because I instructed them to do so. Thank you to both of you guys for being such good sports. And there we go, just under 60 million damage in 1 minute 50 with pretty decent rewards with 1 boost point used. And we're just going to bump into the next one with Jean Grey. Here we go, and we're off with round 2. So this time around, we brought along Ghost with Ghost Panther. Now, you guys might be wondering, this team is not exactly the same. Instead of the 55% bonus that Nick Fury gives, we only get a 45% bonus. But on top of that, you get the 50% fire damage. So it's really hard to measure the 50% fire damage as it would have applied to Sharon Rogers, because obviously she can't take advantage of that. So I think it really, I think it's a pretty balanced comparison. Now, instead of having the 50% additional, it's not 50%. Instead of having the 50% leadership that Nick Fury gets, because we're obviously using Jean Grey's leadership here, we are going to be using Ghost, which gives us an additional 20% energy attack. So it's not quite 50%, but we're getting the extra 50% fire damage, which is difficult to measure. But still, this is not a completely 100% fair comparison, because on the one hand, Jean Grey has a CTP of Rage, which you could argue is better against Master Mold and against Giant Boss Raid. And of course, by comparison, Sharon Rogers only had a CTP of Energy. But if you compare the two in the sense of being best for their characters, despite how good the Rage is, it's actually not as good on Sharon. She really does flourish, and she benefits a lot more from the additional hits and the chain hit damage of the CTP of Energy. So we're just going for the best fit for the character, not necessarily a perfectly matched up setup. But there we actually ended up charging our tier 3 faster. We got 3 tier 3s off in the same amount of time. So I'm not really sure how that kind of factors into the results, but you can see there we obviously did it faster because we were able to pop that second tier 3. So it's kind of like the flow of battle was different for Jean Grey. In the second one, we were 15 seconds faster, but we did get that tier 3 off. I think Sharon Rogers would have been about 5 seconds faster if we hadn't gotten interrupted there with Master Mold flying into the sky. But both clears were incredibly easy, and that just gives you a good comparison and a good way of seeing how much damage both of those are able to do with my setup. Now we're going to jump into a stage 49 Call Obsidian, arguably one of the hardest World Boss Ultimates, and we're going to do this time a exact team comparison. So we're going to put the same team up together to see what's going on. In this case, we are going to use Ghost Panther because it is a bit more valuable for Jean Grey, which is a little bit unfair, of course, to Sharon Rogers. If we were going to give a more ideal team for Sharon Rogers, we would use instead of She-Hulk, or sorry, we would use She-Hulk no matter what, but instead of Ghost Panther, we would use probably White Fox. But White Fox is tier 2 passive, doesn't apply to Jean Grey because she's not a leader, so I didn't want to do a 60% versus 45 because there's a 15% difference there. So this build definitely, this timing actually does benefit Jean Grey a little bit, so you have to take that into consideration. You should give, you know, a few seconds here and there to Sharon Rogers overall to compensate for the fact that she's not taking advantage of that 50% fire damage. And then, you know, conversely, that Jean Grey is. So like I was saying, the two teams aren't necessarily exactly equal, but on the flip side, we do need to recognize as well, just because it's part of the gameplay style and sort of, you know, ease of play for both of these characters. Sharon Rogers, you know, unless you can somehow play perfectly and never make any mistakes, absolutely needs the services of Anti-Venom in order to clear this stage, you know, properly. Whereas Jean Grey doesn't need the heals because she has self-healing and because she also just is, you know, insanely tanky. So that will also sort of influence the results here, but it's really nothing I can do about that, because if I was going to deprive Sharon Rogers of that, you know, extra striker, she would probably suffer, and I would have to play this stage like 1,000 times before I could get it right. But we're getting this proc here with this nice accumulation. Sharon Rogers also will definitely ebb and flow her her amount of damage that she does based on how much accumulation there is. So you will see some variance in how fast she can clear this stage. You know, with optimal with an optimal situation, you know, proccing on the 4 instead of 5 and getting a lot of accumulation from hits, she can definitely put out enough damage to really crush this stage with a lot of speed. And, you know, I think like a minute 30 or possibly a little bit shorter is the absolute fastest. But that obviously, you know, that needs a lot of things to go right. So there is variance here. It's not a completely controlled environment with no variance whatsoever, and you do need to take that into consideration when doing the comparison. Wow, he's just flying around and making it really hard for me to get my tier 3 skill off, but as soon as he comes over here, we should be able to, yeah, he got mind controlled. We're going to ice this one. He's going to stay down there. He's going to take this tier 3 skill. And he's not dead somehow. You're so annoying, Cull Obsidian. Just die, my dude. Just die. And I think this should be the end of his run. There we go. So that was 2 minutes. I just realized that I cleared it with Ghost Panther and She-Hulk. So now I can't use their leaderships because I'm a dumbass. So we're gonna have to use a different team. So yeah, obviously I made a huge mistake. I just really wanted to kill Cull Obsidian, and I didn't realize that I actually had to reuse the team. I usually end up pausing it there, but I just kind of blanked out in the moment. And obviously there's no way for me to replicate She-Hulk's leadership because it's unique in the game. So just a little tip there for you guys. So I think this is probably as close as we're going to get. We get the same Ghost Panther bonus of the 45% increased damage against villains from Valkyrie, and then we get the 70% instead of 50% fire damage bonus from Satana. We're still missing that increased damage against supervillains, so it's not the best possible comparison, but I was thinking about using both Nick Fury and Valkyrie, but I think this is a little bit too unfair because it's a 50% bonus on top of, you know, a 100% increased damage against supervillains, which is more than double what Ghost Panther gives. So I feel like, again, this will probably favor Sharon Rogers a little bit more than it will Jean Grey. But then on the other hand, Jean Grey, you know, is a double cost tier 3, and she doesn't have to use a healing striker, so she can get an extra 10% increased damage against villains because I substituted in Luna Snow instead of Anti-Venom. I can do this comparison again on another day with the exact same team. I can do the She-Hulk team again, which I think is better overall, but sometimes you just make mistakes and you got to roll with it. Obviously, again, there is still the comparison difference because she's using a CTP of Rage versus a CTP of Energy, so you could make the argument that a CTP of Rage is better overall for world bosses because it has the decreased boss defense. There's really no way for me to account for that difference other than giving Sharon Rogers a CTP of Rage, which I don't want to do because it doesn't seem to be, from all the testing, nearly as good as a CTP of Energy, kind of like giving it to Cable. It doesn't actually help him more. So we're just going to go with what we've got. This is kind of like, this is the real world Toronto version of ghetto world boss clears featuring your favorite dumbass, Cynicalex. who doesn't remember that he needs to keep the team active for the next. Where is this asshole? I can't even cancel my skills because he's so far away that I can't target him. But we're getting this done. I think Sharon Rogers did it in about 2 minutes with some mistakes, with some, you know, Ebony Maw or Cull Obsidian kind of running away shenanigans. We did skip the charge up phase. I noticed that with Sharon. She was able to do enough damage to skip that middle phase where he charges up. I don't think at this pace, given the kind of lull in damage from time to time, that she's going to be able to skip it unless we get really lucky with some like clutch mind controls, which I think is what happened to Sharon, and then I popped the tier 3 skill. But that's, again, something that is going to happen randomly or semi-randomly when you're playing, but it's not something that you can count on every single run. We're going to get the buff here from the 5th skill before we pop the 3, and we don't need to worry about when we pop the 6th skill. Yeah. I mean, we have to worry about it for this shit, but we don't have to worry about it in terms of the proc because we have a CTP of, oh, you know what, we can kind of skip it because we have CTP of Rage. He doesn't have cut time, so we can actually just freeze him with the 2nd skill, and it immediately interrupts him. So that's a little tip there for you guys. She's going to do this, she's going to end up taking more time than Sharon Rogers, but not too much more. And I think if we had compared with She-Hulk like I was supposed to, if I was not a dumbass, this would have been, you know, a little bit more accurate and a little bit closer and a little bit more, you know, on the money. But this is still pretty good. We just need this. There we go. Proc to happen. Boom. Maybe 2.5 minutes, so 30 seconds off. Sharon Rogers is very good for Cull Obsidian World Boss Ultimate. Can I not? Oh, he was iframing. Okay. So that is something to take into consideration. She's just very, very good. She just pure energy damage. And I think, I mean, there's no guarantee. I don't think anyone has been able to kind of map it out, but some people are suspicious and they think that Cull Obsidian has an additional elemental damage reduction, because if you use someone like, I don't know, Human Torch, he does really bad damage despite having all defense down and despite having a damage proc and all that stuff. He does really, really poor damage against Ebony, or against Cull Obsidian versus Ebony Maw, which is kind of weird. So there may be something going on there as well that I can't really account for. I can't really map out. But there we go. That was a 3-minute clear. So again, a minute slower with a worse team because I screwed up the results. But overall, I would say that it's hard to tell. I think overall Sharon Rogers' tier 3 skill does more damage, but it appears that either Jean Grey charges her tier 3 skill faster. Sharon Rogers has a really tight rotation in terms of, with a CTP of energy, in terms of doing, you know, 3 cancel 5 4 for me at least. And I didn't really splash in 1 and 2 that much, although they don't add a lot to the tier 3 skill charge up. Sharon Rogers doesn't have as much canceling as Jean Grey, where you can basically cancel all of the skills except for 5. But for Sharon, you don't want to cancel the 5 too early because you want to get that attack to like launch that little red kind of spear. And then with 4, obviously you don't want to cancel that either because it's the animation that does the damage. So I might have been able to charge Sharon Rogers tier 3 skill faster in GBR if I had been more aggressive. But even the way that the battle kind of went out, like the kind of flow of the battle, the first tier 3 skill did so much damage, but the skills in between weren't doing enough damage in between procs that I basically had him in a weird position where he was down to like 5 bars as my tier 3 skill was building up. So whether I hit him with the tier 3 skill at the end or just regular skills, you know, 5 and 4, he was gonna die anyways. Whereas with Jean, we popped those at the end. We popped that last tier 3 skill to just push him over the edge. Otherwise he was gonna go into that healing animation. So an interesting kind of comparison. I think obviously for the cost, there's no doubt that the winner is Sharon Rogers. She costs way less than half what Jean costs. I mean, Jean costs all these other tier 2s. She costs thousands of crystals to get Magneto, thousands of crystals to get her uniform, like double the cost. Not quite double, but, you know, more crystals, you know, at least 500 crystals more than Sharon Rogers does, and then way more to actually rank her up, way more bios to get her to level 70, etc., gear 25, and then on top of costing 10 blast books, which is basically the only thing these two have in common, it's double the CCF, and it's double the enhancement or essence of dimension and Titan component packs. But it's interesting to see the two of them go toe-to-toe in PvE, and while one has obvious value in PvP and the other one doesn't, it's cool to see how, you know, the free-to-play queen can still strike with the best of them in a top build scenario. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know how bad you think my screw-up was with She-Hulk, and if you'd like to see more screw-ups or fewer, subscribe if you enjoy the content and you want to support me, and of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again later today. Take care.